Hey everyone, welcome to Shamanism, Metaphysics, and Grace. I'm Lauren Hubele, and I'm here with my favorite astrologer, Jyoti Wind. Welcome, Jyoti.
Thank you, Lauren. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm really glad you're here, Jyoti, because we have a double header this week that I can't wait to hear your insights on. I'm sure our listeners feel the same way.
Well, yes, we've got the summer solstice and the next day the full moon.
Yeah.
Yep, it is a big week.
It is. And Jyoti, I'm already feeling it in some interesting ways. Like I I have so much energy, but I'm also having a hard time focusing it.
Yeah, and that happens, I think, a lot with the full moon anyway, when it's coming in, just before it kind of clicks in.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
tell us.
Oh, okay. I'll do my best.
Yeah.
Um, so the summer solstice, um, it is the first moment of summer. It is when the sun enters Cancer. And it is the beginning of this next quarter of the year, this next quadrant, you could say, or this next quarter of the year. And so it's not aligned with the moon or anything else, but it's got its own energy about what the next quarter may contain. Okay. And so it comes in on June 20th, which is this Thursday in a couple days. And it's at 2:51 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And so these are the energies for this next quarter. And it says, be flexible. Where are you now and where are you going? So it wants you to look at that. And it can bring a lot of emotions. I mean, Cancer's a water sign. It's the 0 degrees of Cancer. It's the beginning of this watery, emotional energy. And Cancer also are great at putting their finger on the pulse of humanity and know what's moving through the culture at any given time. So a lot of times people with Cancerian energy are very into trends and fads, and they've got the latest gadgets, and they know what's happening, but they're also very deeply feeling and deeply emotional. So it may bring some emotions to the surface, and it may bring things up for people to look at that maybe they hadn't made time for.
Hmm. So would folks with, Cancer rising or Cancer in their chart feel this differently than others?
It would definitely spark some things,
Okay.
and bring maybe some deeper feelings to the surface, or have them looking at how they express themselves, how they conduct themselves, and how they give language to their feelings or not,
Mhm.
so that they can express it.
Okay.
I mean, because Cancer people are usually they're just so sensitive. If you think of the crab as the symbol of Cancer, it's got a hard shell on the top and it's got this very soft underbelly.
Mhm.
And so they're very self-protective, and they like to create protective environments, emotional safety for those in their care, which can look many different ways. It can be an orchestra leader and his crew of musicians. It can be a mom and her brood, you
Mhm.
know, and so it can have many different, sometimes unexpectedly interesting manifestations, because you think of the mom with the kids with Cancerian energy, but you might not think of like a troop leader, a troop leader and his dancers. And he is equally that Cancerian protective person around his people.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, so this quarter, and especially with the Sag moon, it gives You know, it's interesting. Cancer and Sag, this is water and fire. And when I see charts with people who have Cancer and Sag pretty prominent, it always makes me think of, you know, Cancer home, Sag traveler, that this person can either feel at home anywhere, or they can be the foothold for other people traveling through. And so you might experience that in this next quarter. You might be the person who's traveling and all of a sudden feel like, oh, I can do this. No big deal. I can feel, and I even feel at home here. Or you can be the person who's got an open invitation for several people to travel through and hang out for a couple days or a week, and then they're on their way.
Nice. Nice.
So it's kind of like an image, but it's also they're very different energies, and so I just think that we're kind of moving out of some areas that have been difficult. You know, I'm
That's what I was going to ask, Jyoti. I mean, it feels like there might be some easing up with
yeah.
it.
Well, Mars was squaring Pluto, and even in this chart, Mars is still within orb of squaring Pluto, but it's moving on. It's moving on. It's like 7 degrees away for the full moon, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. It's 8 degrees away. So, you know, Mars is moving on from its square to Pluto. And it might feel like we have more of a relief, you know, from that
You're welcome.
intensity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like this is also an opportunity to kind of check in with, I mean, we're mid-year, right? And where are we in our goals and aspirations for this time?
Absolutely. Um, and what do you want over the next second half of the year, the next 6 months or so? You know,
Mm,
what do you want? What do you want to see your life look like? What do you want to manifest for yourself?
mm,
Um, you know, kind of what's the vision? Because, you know, with that Mars being so close in its relationship with Pluto, and now that it's moving on, it's like it got the maybe there's some pieces of the transformative vision, and now it's just a question of how do I implement this? How do I bring more of what I really want to be living into my day-to-day life instead of all the have tos and all of those kinds of things.
Well, that kind of brings up for me that it takes us back to how do I feel about this, which is right where you started with the emotions that come up.
Yes, Cancer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes. How do you feel about where you are? What do you feel you need to express, you know, in your feelings with other people?
nice.
And not so much about them, but just where you're coming from and how you feel. What personal feelings or um you know, what part of your emotional body is up for self-expression?
It sounds like making time for some important conversations this week would be worthwhile.
I think so, and not just this week, because this is the beginning of this next quarter
Right. True.
till October 1st. I'm sorry, till the autumnal equinox in September. So
Mm,
this is that quarter, the very first day of that quarter till then, and so there might be over time when it feels appropriate for you, for anyone to have those conversations or to express some of those feelings instead of them just kind of being, you know, looked askance at.
yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So what about this full moon?
Oh, this full moon. Okay. So, I did want to say one more thing about the summer solstice. It is the earliest solstice we've had in 228 years.
Mm,
I don't have anything more to say about that. I don't know
okay.
what that means, just that it is the earliest one we've had. Maybe because usually it's the 21st or 22nd. And so this is, early, being the 20th, late day on the, well, mid to late day on the 20th.
Mhm.
Okay. So looking at the full moon, is June 21st at 7:08 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And it's called the strawberry moon. And my strawberries are starting to redden. So, yes.
Mhm.
So it's about a balance of power. It's very creative. The sun and moon are opposing, and the sun is also trining Neptune by squaring Neptune. I was thinking it was a trine, squaring Neptune by 2 degrees. So again, it is asking that question of who am I? Where am I going? What do I want for myself? Who am I now? We go through different phases in our life, and so sometimes we're right in there. We've created something, we know what we want, we know who we are in those moments, and then things shift and change, and it's like, well, who am I now? What do I want for myself from here on? So it's only a day away from the solstice, so it's going to have a lot of the same qualities. And Venus is also squaring that Neptune. And so it's saying, what's my sense of direction and purpose? Better said, where am I going? But it's like your sense of direction and purpose, your creative output, how are you expressing yourself creatively? And so there is this T cross, this cardinal mutable T cross. It's a little out of element, but it's the sun and moon both squaring Neptune. So it's like a symbol for timeout, kind of. This,
Mhm.
and so it's saying, where is it not so much about keeping the status quo, but to begin to think about, um, what's the next piece here? Yes, we must be in the now. We must be in the present moment. Everything is in the present moment. And yet we also, we make plans. We're human beings. That's how we've conducted ourselves all these years, centuries. And so it is about being in the present moment and asking into ourselves, what's the next piece for me as well. And so it's just that sense of identity. How am I expressing myself? Where am I going? What do I want for myself? And this full moon is just bringing that more into conscious awareness.
Jyoti, there's two squares going on here, right? We've got it squaring Neptune and squaring Venus squaring Neptune. And I remember a couple months back, you took us through this, what's a trine, what's a square. And I thought squares can be challenging too, like they kind of bump up against each other. Can you talk about
Well,
that in relationship to this moon?
it's the sun squaring Neptune, it's
Mhm.
Venus squaring Neptune, and it's the moon squaring Neptune. So the sun and moon are opposing. I'm going to leave Venus out. Sun and moon are opposing, and they're both squaring Neptune. So it makes it a little difference when you have a T cross. But every time I make that symbol for the T cross, I also am thinking maybe it's also time for time out.
Mhm.
You know
Sure,
what I mean? To
sure.
take some time out and reassess and rethink some things. So a square, what I call a square, is initial frustration with eventual release.
That's
If
right.
you get frustrated enough, you will get up off the couch and do something about it. If
Mhm.
it's not frustrating enough, you'll just not look at it. Oh, I'll get to it. Nah, I don't feel like it. And then if you get frustrated enough,
Yeah,
you'll deal with it.
yeah.
So what this is dealing with your own spiritual life, your own spiritual beliefs, because Neptune is at the last degree of Pisces. And it's going to retrograde back, and it'll come back here next spring as it moves into Aries, so signifying a whole new 10, 11-year cycle with Neptune moving through Aries, fire sign. But it's right at that last, very last degree of Pisces right now. And it's almost like saying, what do you need to let go of? What do you need to let go of to move forward? And so the sun squaring Neptune, moon squaring Neptune, your inner core nature, what you value a great deal, that's kind of the sun. And the moon is more your outer personality structure, how you behave, how you express yourself to other people, to the world. What if all of that isn't working anymore? Time to just go, okay, I've had enough of all of that. Time for something else. And this isn't an eclipse, it's just a full moon.
Yeah.
So it's just a cycle, until the next full moon. And it brings a question of goals and nurturing. How do you balance both of those? And because Mars is still within range of squaring Pluto, are there power struggles that are still going on inside of you or you with other situations?
Hmm.
By the next moon phases, that will not be an issue. It'll be something else.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
always something else.
Yeah, the next challenge.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So this kind of aspect, like this T-cross with Sun, Moon, and Neptune, won't happen again for a while. And I think it's important that, day by day, month by month, we pay attention to like the signature for that particular moon. Let's say new moon, full moon, whatever, that we pay attention to that signature of what it is very timely asking us to look at or asking us to do.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Good.
And then just to look ahead, I just wanted to mention that Neptune is going to turn retrograde on July 2nd. And so it's what's called stationing, um, June 28th through July 7th. So that 9-10 day period, Neptune will be stationing, and it's a time to really ask for clarity because things may not be clear. Reasons of why things happen or why things are set in motion might not be real obvious.
Hmm. Hmm.
Neptune rules Pisces. It's the god of the sea, fog and mist and rain, and and spirituality. And I always feel like Neptune brings a fog so it can rent the veil and show you the truth of things. But initially, it's that unknown, like, am I seeing true here? Is this what's really happening?
Mhm, mhm.
Is it how I think it is?
So would you say this is the type of phase where it's going to reveal itself? We know that. So to just be aware and kind of write it out.
Yes, and ask for clarity so
Okay.
that when the veil is rented, you can see,
Yeah.
that you're ready to see.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Jyoti. Anything
Uh,
else today?
uh, I don't think so. I just feel like things are a little bit lighter. You know, I mean, we went through some heavy stuff in April.
Mhm.
We knew it was going to be a big month of the year, um, but we also um, are looking at collectives, larger pictures of like the Pluto return to the United States chart. And I think it's next year, the Uranus return to the United States chart. And so these are all for those living in the US or dealing with the US in some way. These are all bringing changes in the way this country feels, projects itself, conducts itself in the world. And so we're part of a greater whole, not just metaphysically and spiritually, but also nationally, you could say, I guess. And so we're in a collective shift here, not only planetarily, but also as a nation, if you live in the US.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So there's the macrocosm and the microcosm on a couple different levels. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to observe that and be checking back in, kind of shifting between the larger perspective and our inner perspective and see the connections.
Sure. And also notice the political scene, as we are, making choices for ourselves. There are those who are making choices for our nation, our country. And so, just noticing,
Yeah.
just noticing more than anything else. It's not like you have to get up and do something necessarily unless you feel moved, but it's just noticing the larger waves of energy, the larger patterns that are affecting your life, because Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, these are called the transcendental planets. They're the outer planets. They're the ones that bring the great movements, for the earth, for the countries, for a person. And so it's not like Venus and Mercury. It's like Neptune, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And so these are the big change makers. And so we're kind of under some of those auspices a lot more right now than we've been in years.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, lots to pay attention to.
There is.
Well, good. Thanks again, Jyoti.
You're very
Appreciate your
welcome.
wisdom.
Thank you.